Hello everyone, how are you guys doing? Hopefully you're having a wonderful day. It is Monday, so we are back again with another Fanatics / what used to be PWCC weekly review, where I go through the top 100 soccer items auction off over on their platform. As always, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to leave a like. I'd appreciate it greatly. But with that said, let's go ahead and get on over there. So they've revamped the website a little bit, which means that now I can't go to one page with 96 items. Instead, we have to go through a few different pages, so we'll do just that. One addition that is pretty cool is to be able to see how many watchers have watched different items, so we'll talk about that as we go through these as well. So we start with a 2006 Panini Foot Kareem Benzema PSA 10. If you're getting real ones for this price, it's probably a pretty good price, but presumably they're fake. At least the general premise on the sticker is that if it has this sort of blank space within the Panini foot, that it is not authentic. At least that's the general belief. I've seen someone debate that once, but I haven't seen a lot of people hold the stance that this is real. The reason I'm skeptical on this sticker is solely because when I looked back at like the first 20 to sell on PWCC, practically every single one didn't have this, and then all of a sudden there's tons of 10s, and basically every single 10 does have this. So I personally can't say for certain one way or the other, but generally the market seems to think that that's sort of the case. No matter that, a 66 Franz Beckenbauer Velita back PSA 6 goes for $96 next to that. We have a Pulisic PSA 9, $98 there for an out of 149 purple die cut. I mentioned before I like the die cuts, hence why I was bidding on this one. I think a PSA 9 is a really good grade for the die cut since a 10's practically impossible. The purple though is my least favorite of the colors. The out of 249, while it is, more common, it is a color match, or at least more of a color match. Purple isn't, doing it all that much for me, and I'm a purple guy. So nonetheless, I thought that was a good price if you're the buyer. I decided to focus on another card, which I also lost, so that was great. In this row, nothing too crazy here. We will talk about the Velita Panini Calciatore, or just the Panini Calciatore in general here in a bit. Above that, more of the same. Not too much to add here. The Messi is around where we've seen. Those were as high as maybe 175 at times, but it always seemed like they were due to come back a bit. This was printed to like 23,000, I believe. At least that is what I saw on Instagram once, so that's where I get my info. Out of 5 Mbappe seems like a low price, but at the same time it's a PSA 8, it's a Japan edition, so I don't know. I mean, just the proliferation of numbered cards kind of speaks for itself there. 57 Anina John Charles. We also have a Sandro Mazzola PSA 6 with a Premio back. Goes for 108. This seemed like a decent price to me. Well, actually, it seemed like a couple decent prices. I can't really speak on early English stuff just because that's a whole niche in and of itself that's pretty well explored, and I don't feel right there. Like I'd feel like the smallest of small fries, and I'd be fighting quite the uphill battle, I just think, in general. So I don't really mess with it, but as you can see by the watchers, it's still a decent amount for sure. Gio Smith, definitely a name you see all the time. This Nasasi I thought was high just because, we've seen other ones go, but at the same time, it was a really good looking 1.5, so maybe that's what did it, and I would imagine probably did. The front, you can see that the bottom right corner does have a pretty big ding, but I mean, for a 1.5. Presumably the back has some sort of paper loss, but at the same time, not all that apparent. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, a 1.5, that would be a super strong price, but at the same time, for what it's looking like, I don't really doubt it. This Alcantara here, I'm not sure if it gets a higher price because it has 1920 in the listing. It's actually circa 1920s. This is sort of a playing card. The other side had, I think this was like a 4 spades or something. A decent price for what is a playing card, and there's a few different ones of these. I'm not sure for Alcantara, but for like Zamora, you'll see a lot of different issues. 117 isn't a bad price compared to what you see on Toto. Above that in this row, I will admit, Italy sort of my weak spot along with England. At least as someone that's entering into vintage and sort of finding his footing, Italy and England seem like the hardest to sort of piece together, and they are some of the most important. So I understand the necessity, but I cannot do that yet. I did look at the back of this Nobility Pele though, and that was a game-worn patch, so I thought that was relatively low at 138. And a CSG 10, I guess CGC in this one, whatever you take that for. KDB for 144 up here. It didn't strike me as incredibly high. Decent amount of watchers as well with 28. Next to that, we have the lesser desirable, but still desirable Thierry Henry rookie here. The Spanish version and a PSA 6 goes for 144. We then have a flashbacks Clint Dempsey. So this isn't the base rookie Clint Dempsey. This is a flashback, but PSA 10 pop 1 of 1 gets a good number. Above that, an Enrico 42 SGC 1 goes for 144. We have a R9, the junior football sticker, a 5.5 goes for 144 as well. Always love the look of that one. We have a Zidane here, a 98 Panini Super Football. PSA 9 goes for 144. Doesn't strike me as a crazy price, at least to me seems like a really good Zidane sticker, so 144 there doesn't seem bad. Got to go to the next page. Starting off here, we have a 1908 Wolverton Wanderers team, SGC4, presumably a postcard. I think I checked the back of this and it was. It goes for 150. Then we have a Lewandowski PSA 8 that goes for 156. Check this one out, and this one for 156. Last one did 323, but that was a best offer, so that's always going to do a good number. And then the last auction that we can find here was 192 on Fanatics in July. So down a little bit, but I guess that the best offer is kind of a high price. These have generally been around 200, so I do think it's a soft sale. Decent amount of watchers, though. This Kylian Mbappe trying to sneak in as a rookie here. PSA 9, Topps Finest Green goes for 156. Cavani PSA 10, Pop 1 of 8 goes for 156 here. I thought that was a decent price and just wanted to look it up. And actually, last few sales have been even higher, 234, 216, 162 back in 2023. But generally, I mean, it hasn't really fallen since 2022. Next to that, we have an R9 Grande PSA 6 for 156, Pop 1 of 1 for higher, along with a Zinedine Zidane PSA 10 upper deck. This Messi's dropped a good bit. I think they started at around 300 and have since gone down to 200, now 162, so we'll see if there are more of those to come or not. 17 watchers, not all that high. Next to it, we have a printing plate Holland for 162. Not a big printing plate man myself, but more power to you if you are. This Lewandowski black FIFA score team, I don't know what it is, but this black 1 of 1. We've seen it sell before. I didn't check the comp, but I wouldn't say that it was much lower than this, I wouldn't think. 174 doesn't strike me as particularly high. Above that, I guess, would you rather have a 1 of 1 score 2021 Lava or a out of 25 Harry Kane from the World Cup Prism? I think it's an interesting question. This one goes for 174 and a PSA 10 Pop 1 of 3. Next to that, we have an R9 sticker, PSA 8 for 174, a PSA 9 David Beckham for 180. Haven't seen a lot of those go, and they had a decent amount of watchers. 180, not a crazy price, considering, again, we don't see a lot of these. We've seen a lot of his other cards go as of late, and haven't seen a Shreddies in a long while, at least on PWCC/Fanatics. Above that, this Beckenbauer, unsure if this is a relist or not, but as we know, Beckenbauer signs a lot, so very well could just be another copy. Goes for 180. Topps Living 2019 Messi. I know, some people are putting together the set. I can't say who they are personally. I just know that generally this is a set that people tend to like, mostly because at some point or another, a lot of people within soccer have had some Topps Living cards, and so, of course, some people are going to go after the set and try to put it together, and the early ones are much more rare than the later ones, so. Then we have a Sapphire Kylian Mbappe out of 50, PSA 10 for 186, a 1990 PSA 9 Maradona for 186 as well, and then a Lamine Yamal PSA 10 Diamond from Donruss goes for 204 in a PSA 10. Notably here, I think the most notable part is that there are 8 watchers on a card like that, and I think that's exactly what I would warn about with Lamine Yamal stuff in general, is that if, a lot more cards come out, which, let's be honest, they're probably gonna, I can guarantee you they are going to. Now, assuming that's true, these watchers are going to dilute even more into other cards. And so if it only has 8 watchers now, at some point that turns into probably 4, and then maybe 2, and then, what's this going for? I don't know. Especially with all the platforms there are, there's just a proliferation of different selling sites, so it's hard to keep eyes on something like this that isn't all that desired by true collectors. If you bought this, hopefully I didn't ruin your day, but, 8 watchers, I don't think it speaks well of it. I think that kind of shows the signs that I would warn of. Now, above that here, we have a lot of watchers on the Charlton, 41 on a PSA 6 that goes for 204. I looked that up because it at least seemed low, and it was. The last couple have gone for 336, 300, then 214 back here. This is a blue-red back, which is more rare, but if you go further back, there were, much stronger prices back in the day for sure. As of late, though, it seems like a lower sale. It's also really off-center, which for higher grade vintage is always going to be something that sort of lowers its value for the collector. Pulisic 23 watchers there on that Color Blast. It goes for 210. I think we've seen this one go as well before because I've only ever seen it on the Fanatics Weekly maybe a month ago. This 52 Kubala, at least from what I saw in the vintage Discord, link down below. Tons of good vintage info in there that, I glean from as much as I can. Apparently this is not a rookie. There are others prior, which is well known, but in terms of this in particular, there's actually another copy that has a different logo beneath it, so something to look out for there if you're in the Kabbalah space. 30 watchers on that, pretty good. Again, low watchers here on this 2017 Topps Chrome Kylian Mbappe. I mean, sort of what happens with base cards, but still gets a good number. I mean, 216 in soccer is nothing to scoff at. On to page 3 of 4. Here we have an optic Lamine Yamal base. Again, prime example, 7 watchers on an optic base card. I can almost guarantee that's going to go down. And there was a good post by Paulo over on Instagram. He's a Portuguese collector that lives in America, and he owned a shop early in the 2000s, and from my understanding was selling soccer products, and he mentioned how he had sold someone a Messi rookie card for $5, someone who eventually gave it to their kid. They found their kid or ended up seeing their kid somewhere. They had the card. It was just a cool moment. But, to relate that to this, he sold a Messi rookie card a few years into Messi's career to the guy for like $5 to $10. And that's kind of just reference for where we are now, where 15 years, 20 years later, we have people paying $216 for an optic rookie card of a player that is never going to be Messi. Let's just be honest. Maybe he can, reach the heights at certain points, but generally speaking, there's zero doubt or very little doubt in my mind that he will not be Messi. If we assume that that is to be true, I mean, this is a base card going for $216, and there are tons of numbered cards out there. I mean, back in the rookie year of Messi, a base card meant something, and that was $5, $10 then, whatever it may be. Nowadays, a base card doesn't mean anything. I mean, let's be honest, especially in a year like Lamine Yamal, where he has as many cards produced as you could imagine, I just don't see this holding up. And I mean, it's an easy take to have because it's going to prove true generally. Now, some cards might beat the trend, but all that to say, I think that's a high price. So there you go. Next to that, a low price that I think happened to here with 27 watchers, a 65 Panini Calciatore Pele. We see a lot of 60 stuff go, and this has always been one that stuck out to me just because you see it a lot, and it looks good as well. Early Panini Calciatore. I must have closed the sale, but I'll tell you that basically last year this was closer to $500 to $750 at times, and now it's down to $222, which to me sort of makes sense. I mean, rookie Pele stuff has gotten beaten up as well, and so if rookie stuff's falling, 60 stuff is going to struggle as well, generally. Now maybe some of the more rare stuff holds, but makes sense, and a sticker that I do think looks really good and one that I'd love to have one day. I will also add that pre-boom, this was a $70 sticker in late 2019, so for it to still be $700 last year was still a pretty high price, generally speaking. So next to it, a Donruss Vinny here, 22 watchers there, so that's not a base card, but not a numbered card either from Donruss. It gets a decent amount of watchers, and I think that is in part that Vinny doesn't have a ton of rookies, and I think that's going to help players like him and others that were in the 2000s and maybe early 2020s. In this row, I noticed that the Erling Haaland Sapphire was really low, $240 on that one. That was last year or 2 years ago, closer to $800, and then it came down to $400, and now it's almost at $200. Kind of surprised to still see 30 watchers on that, but I mean, it is Erling Haaland, so can you really be all that surprised? This Cruyff Zahor, and this went for $252, and I looked that one up just because you don't see a lot of Cruyff generally in these, and the last sales were $126 for a 2, and then you had some PSA 2s back last year that went for, $34, $49, a PSA 1 for $33, so I think that this was a good sale, at least comparatively to some of the sales of last year. I think this was one of the all-time high sales, honestly. A PSA 8 in 2023 did $348, and now a 4 does, $250? So yeah, pretty strong price there, I would say. Above that, we have a Marcus Rashford auto from 2017. We have a 58 Bremer Pele 1.5 going for $264. A 66 Eusebio that I don't think I've ever seen before, but, has a PMG feel to it. Nonetheless, pop 1 of 1. Goes for $264 there. Not typical of what you see from early Eusebio, but definitely something different. Got a Messi and Ronaldo pairing here at $288 and $300. Next to that, we have the Mark van Basten that had a lot of watchers, 36 on this one. PSA 4 goes for $300. Early Van Basten, not easy, so going to get a lot of watchers, at least that seems to me. This PSA 4 goes for $300. Last 8 did nearly $600. 8 before that, a little over $600. There's a lot of rookies scattered between this because the dating was off by PSA, so that's going to exist, so just, be mindful. But yeah, I think this was a pretty good price to me. A PSA 6 going for $420 last year. I think that's a strong sale relatively. Kaboom Rodrigo, PSA 10 for $312. We have a Kobe Mainu Tiger Choice that goes for $312 and a PSA 10. This Di Stefano PSA 1, pop a 1 of 1, 3 higher. We've seen this sell a fair few times here on the Fanatics Weekly, and we'll look at that now. So it had sold earlier this year for $630. This sale goes for $312, so quite the dip there. But it was actually kind of a high sale comparatively to some of the sales that happened the year before that. This one on eBay was sort of one that we've talked about before, but it ran like 4 or 5 times from the same guy. Might have even been listed on PropSteam beforehand. I don't know. Maybe the guy overpaid. He was trying to get what he put in, or at least half of what he put in, back out for it. He struggled with it. All that to then have a PSA 1 that went for $630 seemed really strong. Now maybe that's because of a PSA 7 sale here that went for $1,800 and someone just sort of FOMO'd behind it. I'm unsure, but this has sold a fair few times and really hasn't gone down a ton since pre-boom or even sort of during the boom for vintage. I mean, $565 back then for a 1.5 to around $300 now for a 1 isn't a huge dip. 45 watches as well, pretty good. We got a vintage row here, starting with a Miazza from 38, pop 1 of 1, just 1 higher, at least to me, sort of stands out in terms of Miazzas. Staple pre-war player, and pop 1 of 1, just 1 higher. It is a little bit later. It's definitely not early career at all, but to be able to have something that at least seems fairly rare. Got a lot of watchers too, and it goes for $324. Next to it, we have a 65 Crack Galasso Di Stefano that goes for $350. We'll see a Pele later in this auction. This one had sold before for $528 last year, so this one's actually down a little bit. Personally, I love the style of these cards. Reminds me of early Topps cards. And the full figure with the colors just looks really, really good. Next to it, we have a 42 Pedernera there, and an SEC 2.5 that goes for $350. An Arda Güler auto that goes for $360 above that. A PSA 8 of the sticker that we saw earlier for R9 goes for nearly $400. This Lewandowski PSA 10 also does nearly $400. This being a second-year portrait, I think we saw another second-year in high-grade run recently. I don't know, in the world of what we've seen from pre-modern, like if this became a pop 20 or 30 and they were coming out fairly often, would I want one? Like, probably not. So, while I understand the excitement and the price, to me, it's something that at this point I just don't really get excited about anymore, which is a shame. I wish I could, but I'm also not a big Lewandowski guy, so, maybe that's it. Above that, we have a Garincha Pele Gazzetta that goes for $408. This is the other one that I lost in this auction, a Galactic PSA 10 Neymar. I've mentioned before, I like the Galactics. The Neymar is a pop 1 of 1. I have a PSA 9. I wanted to upgrade. This went for about 5 times more than I paid for my PSA 9, so I didn't feel, that I needed to go further. I felt like I tried a good bit, and, congrats to the winner. I think it was still a good buy. I saw an Iniesta earlier the same day on Card Hobby go for like $300, and to me, the Iniesta was a pop 3, this is a pop 1. I didn't feel like this was an unfair price, but figured I'd save that for another day. Then next to it, we have a 1902 Geo Smith rookie, which, again, Fanatics and their use of rookie is always fun, but that goes for $444, PSA 6, pop, a 106, 1 higher. And I don't claim to be an English expert, so maybe that is a rookie, but at least for my scrolling through Fanatics weeklies, I don't think that is. Correct me if I'm wrong, feel free. Starting off the final page here, we have a Saka 2020 Green Ice for nearly $500 out of 49 PSA 10. We have a PSA 9 Panini Calciatore OC that goes for $504. Typically, that's a PSA 7. You take off a couple grades for any qualifiers. So we saw the 6 earlier for $222. This being maybe a 7 for $500 doesn't seem unfair. PSA 2 Gazzetta here for $528. We got Gio Reyna making it in the top page, so, that's always fun as a USMNT guy. Not a card I was going after. I thought it went for a decent price at the same time. If you go and look at sales, which I don't think most people care, but if you wanted to, this at one point was selling really, really high. Multiple thousands, I would imagine, at least. And he's been through a really rough stretch, and so his cards aren't going to do all that well. The orange, like most products, sits in a weird spot where it's not quite red, but it's also not gold, and gold in this scenario being a color match, at least to me, it's one of the lesser desirable of the colors he has, which is weird as an out of 25, but there's only green other than that, so make of that sale what you will. 58 Pele and Vava here from the Bremer Fockring set, number 11. PSA 6 goes for nearly $600. This 49 Jama Santos, we've looked at this before. This had sold just a couple months ago, but had been sold again. I think the person actually paid because it was someone in the Discord that was posting about it, so probably just wanted to move on from it. But this one goes for $600. Prior, it had sold for $700, really beaten up. There was a sale for a much better looking authentic copy that went for, I think, like $1,500. But this is, pretty bad comparatively, I would say. Above that, 63 Nanina Pele Postcard goes for $600. looked at the sales on this because, I'm not a postcard guy, but I do think that this is just a really good looking Pele. Last 5 actually on eBay, assuming all is on the up and up, went for $1,700. So quite the dip, or actually $1,900, golly. So quite the dip from there. My guess would be it's probably, it's good eBay bait in the sense that, like, if you wanted someone that doesn't know much about soccer to overpay on something, a Pele that looks like this and pretty high grade from the 60s sounds really cool. Like, this looks really cool. Now, if you know it's a postcard and that you can get it for a lot cheaper, maybe you don't, overpay or whatever. But man, even back, May 2020, now this went for $125. Again, hard to really judge comps in the past because maybe this person was doing the same thing where they were overpaying because they thought it was cool. This was May 2020. Everyone's chasing everything. Who knows? But, I do think it's a cool looking Pele, and $600 for a 5 doesn't seem crazy. Pop 1 of 5, none higher. Then we have a aluminium malt stained glass with 40 watchers next to that. Goes for nearly $700. A Pulisic National VIP Red Wave out of 25 auto goes for $720. To me, seems like a fairly high price, I would say. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sticker. So, yeah, $720 for a second-year sticker. Come on. I don't know. It seems high to me, but, if you bought it, more power to you. Pele Flamble 62 PSA 1 goes for $720. This is a fun one that you don't see all too often. Look that one up because why not? The only other comp we have, at least recently, wow, that was 2 years ago, an authentic altered went for $660. I guess it does look pretty good on the front. It presents very well. Unsure, how it's altered or whatever may be going on there. But this one goes for just a little bit higher. Looks a bit more battered. But yeah, other than that, we have a comp in 2021 for one that goes for $403 and a DD for $120, and then a PSA 3 that apparently went for $8,000. So make of that what you will. Seems like a decent sale, but hard to make anything of it when they're so infrequent. In between the Peles, we have a TAA 1 of 1 that goes for $990, a Pop Verdasha from 2022 Sapphire. A PSA 2 Titularis goes for $1,020. To me, seemed like a decent price for the buyer. I think a PSA 3 recently went for $1,800, and a 1 is gone for $500, $600, maybe even $700 at times. So $1,020 on a PSA 2 doesn't seem bad at all. This PSA 9 Sergio Ramos goes for $1,100, a pop of 1 of 13, 1 higher on his Mega Cracks rookie. Looking back at past comps, this is an okay price, I guess. We have a 2022 comp here and a 2021 comp for $1,000 and $2,000, and then a comp earlier this year for $1,500. So I guess it's one of the lower of the bunch. But when you talk about peak versus bottom, it seems like the peak for this card was $2,000. It's currently at $1,000, which generally for soccer, to be at half your peak price, it's not too bad. So I will say what does concern me with this one and why I thought maybe it might go down is that the PSA 8 has not been doing all that hot. If I can get it up here, yeah, the last one went for $152. We even had sales low as $100 back in January. So yeah, some of the auctions go pretty low on this card in PSA 8. The 9 seemingly holding a pretty good premium, probably given it's a pop 1 of 13, 1 higher, basically seen as the highest grade you can get. 52 watchers here on this Vecchi Garincha sort of surprised me. Now, it is a top 5% eye appeal. I'm guessing that pulls in extra watchers just from people looking at eye appeal stickered cards. And yeah, 1,100 here. It does look really good. I totally get the top 5% eye appeal. A lot of the time people joke about it, and I'm not some fanboy for PWCC/Fanatics. I mention bad things about them all the time, but I do think the eye appeal stickers, especially in something like this, it gets a top 5%. I think it deserves it. Look at the colors on this. Look at the edges. Now, it almost looks too good, which you wonder about, but this is relatively recent in terms of grading. I think PSA's got their stuff down on this point, but yeah, back looks really good. Not a whole lot going on there. Good colors. The front looks amazing. I think it's amazing too, is what I'm saying. And I think that's why it gets the price that it does when we go and look at comps. This too goes for $1,100. Last couple were the same copy that went for $750 and then $552. Now here again, this too looks nothing like this too, so sort of why that happens. But they are the same grade, so, definitely tricky in soccer where, a little bit of back damage can get you to a 2 and you can look like a PSA 8, 9, 10 card nonetheless. So it seems fair. I think it makes sense that I got the premium that it did. Next to it, we have a 2023 Donruss Kaboom Kylian Mbappe. PSA 10 goes for nearly $1,200 there. 65 watchers here on this PSA 9 Monday Chroma Messi that goes for $1,650. I think last one did $1,750, so I think this is a little bit lower, but still in the ballpark of what you'd expect. And at least from the eye, this one appears to be, pretty OC, so I can see why that one maybe goes on the lower end of it. Then we have 59 Balas Figurinas Pele, number 35, PSA 1 goes for $1,700 there. Pop 1 of 2, 6 higher. Always fun to see the odd and ends from the 50s and 60s Pele go. And yeah, a decent number there, I would assume. 2016 Kylian Mbappe foot. This is not a decent number, at least compared to what a lot of Mbappe has done in the past. So I didn't look this one up, but let's just say that the peak was 25K at one point in time. Now, of course, that was a very small segment of time. Pre-boom, this was closer to a $500 card, so we're 3 to 4x what we were pre-boom. And over the last year, the chart was down 50%. So not too hot, considering he got the move people have been wanting for, but, you know, you could say it's definitely taken too long. Not that I'm a buyer of this, but at the same time, I'm always someone that, you know, will scream from the rooftops that I think this is a cautionary tale for a lot of other rookies. When Mbappe has one true rookie and people aren't even willing to overpay for a PSA 10, you know, where is prospecting or modern soccer really going? Where are we heading? And I wonder about that a lot. Now, you can always say, well, this is a sticker, and trust me, I get it, but I would rather have a sticker that's a one true rookie than any numbered card that's just in a whirlwind of thousands upon thousands of numbered cards. Call me crazy. I know Panini stickers have the authenticity issue, all that good stuff. Now, if you said, do you want a one-of-one of, you know, a Lamine Yamal, or do you want this? Of course, I'd take the one-of-one Lamine Yamal. But on the other hand of it, if you're asking, do I want the out-of-39 blue laser from this set? Probably not. I'd take this. Then we have a 65 crack Pele. So we saw the SGC 6 Di Stefano go earlier. This is a Pele PSA 3 that goes for $2,600. Really nice looking here. Sort of has a foily style in terms of coloring, which I always find pretty endearing about the card. The last comp was a PSA 1 that did $725 with an eye appeal sticker. Before that, another one for $725 as well. So a 3 at, you know, a little over 2,000, nearly 3 makes sense. It's in the ballpark of the multipliers and all that. This seemed like a super low sale. Now, it is really crackly, a lot of wrinkles, so I'm sure that plays a factor. But, you know, $198 on that last year seems like someone got a pretty good steal, I would say. So, yeah, I think someone did really good there, and it seems like that's bumped up a good bit since last year. Then you have a myriad of 2022 autos from Leaf. We have this Merlin variation out of 5 red Lamine Yamal that goes for $3,800. We saw the variation of the Merlin actually go last week, the Superfractor, that went for, I think it was 15,000, maybe close to 20, somewhere in that ballpark. So a good multiple over this, and still a good number here at nearly 4 on a Lamine Yamal Merlin variation. And then finally, top 3, we have 2 Peles and a Lamine Yamal. A lot of Pele, a lot of Lamine Yamal up here. 2 of the GOATs. This Cardmaster goes for $4,080. The Cardmaster vending, I think this is a 59 issue, 5960, I think. PSA 3, pretty high grade, pop 1 of 1, 5 higher. It goes for a very good number. When we go and look at the comps, not going to have a whole lot to speak of. There's one here for $419, and there's one here for $204. I'm just going to say that generally I have seen warnings that there are fakes out there for this, so raw ones, I wouldn't really trust a comp. But the older ones, I mean, looking at this, they typically have a patina to them, like they look old. So for this one to be on an eBay auction, I just wouldn't trust that's real. So it is something to worry about. Again, here, one that's graded looks old. I do think PSA's actually graded a couple fake as well, but they've probably done a good job at getting them out of the pop report. So if you are buying these, look up their cert on PSA as well to see if they're still active. I'd like to believe Fanatics does that whenever they put these on auction, but, you know, I don't trust it. So do your due diligence. But in terms of comps, I mean, highest comp by a mile. Last one, 5 last year, did 900. A 3 does nearly 4,000. Now, granted, it doesn't have a huge stain across it, but it seems like a really good price. Then we have a 58 Titularis PSA 2. We've seen a lot of these go recently, which is kind of strange because typically they are not all that common in terms of the weekly, but a PSA 2 goes for 5,000. And the surprising part to me as well is that they've held really strong in an area where a lot of other Peles have seemingly been dropping. The Aquarellas, the Gazettas, the Records, some of the lesser desirable, at least more common in higher grade. This Titularis in both 1 and 2 grades have done really, really well. And then finally, the most watched one of the auction. So, you know, I always mention, like, who's buying this. Apparently, a lot of people. So this one goes for $6,000. Ton of watchers on it. Pop 1 of 1, which is true. It is a pop 1 of 1 for a PSA 10 without the auto grade. But I did look at the sales history, and there was a sale for $17,000 in August for, you know, a 1010, which I get it. It's a 1010, so I think it deserves some premium. What premium do you give on a 1010 versus just a 10? to me, like 50%. I mean, a decent jump, but not crazy. Especially when I believe that this auto doesn't look bad. I don't know why the person didn't grade the auto. Maybe they just thought it didn't look that clean. But to me, it doesn't seem to go off sticker. Yeah, I mean, this 1010 sort of has the same structure as the other one from what I can see. I'm not a Aluminium All auto expert, but that looks like a 10. So I think this is a really low sale compared to the 1010 in the past. You can say it's not the same grade, and I get that, but to me, it doesn't look all that strong. So it depends how you want to take that sale. I think when you compare back to the 1010, it seems like a lower sale, but just looking at it in a vacuum, $6,000 on a Prospect rookie sticker auto PSA 10 seems pretty good. But that does it for this week. We'll take a look at next week. I haven't given it a peek yet, so I'm kind of going in blind here, but we'll see what we got. PSA 8 Messi leading the pack here. We also have a PSA 7 George Best super high grade there. A lot of watchers already. People are already hounding this stuff, a full week out. Fritz Walter, PSA 4 super high grade on that, Pop 104 and then higher. We have a Messi Dynasty. We haven't seen a whole lot of those go, especially for Messi. I don't think we've seen any. We have a Messi Kaboom, a PSA 9 Este. A lot of Messis next week. Another PWCC Eye Appeal Vecchi here, a PSA 7 Velita back Eusebio. Pretty big hit in auction next week. Treble Mbappe. Ronaldinho rookie. We have a Messi PSA 8 Monday Chromo. Out of 4, Stadium Club Jude Bellingham auto. And surely a lot more behind that. I'm only going to look through the first page. But looks pretty good. Hopefully you're excited. I know I am. But that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, again, make sure to leave a like. I'd appreciate it greatly. Anything you want to share with me or others, would love to see in a comment down below. If you want to see more videos like this as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day. And peace.